Yeah, thank you. I been listening and thinking about one of the themes that's been apparent through the whole summit, really, and that is the theme of stories or narratives. And I think probably most of us in Summit have at some point in time worked with an at-risk youth. And I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to share a favorite story with a young person that stayed with you through the years.
I can share a story of a young man. He's a tragic case. He came to us when he was 10, got in trouble. He started off on and being on coming into custody for a pretty serious action. He went from foster home to foster home, group home to group home. You know, given his age, of course, he was immature, or he was 10, and he would get kicked out of a lot of these placements. Part of it is he would run off, and he had, I guess to give you a little background information, he had lived with his biological parents at one time. His biological mother took off and left with a boyfriend, went to California, and took the young boy when he was 2 or 3. And the young boy was found in a drug house, locked in a closet. And nobody knows how long he was locked in this closet. But he did get taken back to his father's home. The father had remarried. There was a lot of conflict between the young man and his stepmother. And I don't think there was a lot of love there, and that's my opinion. And the young man had a very close relationship with his paternal grandmother. However, the stepmom wanted that to stop. She was pretty alienating with this young man, and he ended up committing a pretty violent crime towards her. Because he was going from foster home to foster home, group home to group home, and getting kicked out all the time for doing some crime, he went to the juvenile correctional facility, the youngest one that had ever been there, at 11. And he had problems the whole time there. Really, his behavior got a lot worse. He was put in the SYNC custody when he got released from Department of Corrections custody. Just recognized that he really maybe would do better, possibly, in the SYNC world. He was put in a group home because it's hard to find people, foster homes, that will take kids with his problems. Well, group home is a good place for a kid that has a lot of problems like this. So he ran off all the time, committed more serious crimes. So he built up his criminal history. So starting with one felony, he has several felonies now. He has come back to the Department of Corrections custody again, and he's now in the correctional facility for the 3rd time. And he is 15. In his biological mother's rights were severed. His biological father passed away from an accident while this young man was in the correctional facility at the time. The only family member that he has that keeps in contact with him is a paternal grandmother who is in her late 80s. He really has no one. I feel terrible for this young kid. He one adult in his life. Though when he's around other kids, he'll do some pretty significant things. He'll stab them with pencils, trying to hurt them. He'll body slam them. He tries to hurt people. And his original crime was very, very severe. So this is a kid that obviously has trauma. And I think he's kind of fallen through the cracks early on. And so just dealing with his behavior. So that's my story with him.
Amazing.
Does anyone else want to share or have any questions about this segment?
Well, I want to share a success story, but it's very much like what Peggy talked about. We had a young man that came into our system when he was 12 or 13. He was in and out of JDC, in and out of placements. We would try him at home with his mother, who lives here in Garden City. And the police were called there on numerous occasions. We were called there on numerous occasions. The one constant that he always had was Jennifer Mata, his ISO. And she kept sticking with him and sticking with him through everything that happened. We thought we had a great plan. He was going to get to go live with his dad in Texas, and his dad was going to, everything on paper and everything talking sounded great. But what ended up happening was the young man was a mule and was running drugs up and down 83 highway from Texas all the way up to here. He ended up getting caught in Liberal with a lot of drugs. We ended up getting him back and worked with him again. He today, though, he is 17 years old. He lives in a foster home in Larned with a gentleman who just recently lost his wife. And that part is important because this young man's mother ran off with a boyfriend, and it has no longer been seen. And nobody knows where she is, and she doesn't want anything to do with her son at all. The father is a truck driver, and he has the 2 daughters with him, and he just doesn't feel that he could do anything with the son. But with the fact that the young man was running drugs, wasn't a good, healthy situation anyway. So he has that loss of his family. And so him and that foster father have bonded in ways that are unbelievable. He has a full-time job, and he has just done so much better. Now we're trying to figure out that educational piece because he is very much uneducated. And with his family having immigrated here from Mexico, education wasn't such a big thing for them. It was more like getting jobs and them working 2 and 3 jobs instead of being at home with anybody taking care of the kids. He was in charge. And so that was like putting the fox in the hen house for him. And so, but Jennifer stuck with this kid for 5 solid years. She has stuck with him. She still goes to Larned to check on him in person so that he knows we're still there. And I think it's having that ISO that cares, that ISO that wants that kid who everybody else thinks is going to be unsuccessful and to just discard them, but has made that one kid feel so important. That has made that difference. And then making sure that he's in a home where he feels wanted and important, because he didn't have that before. And at one point we found out he was like 15 and living at home on his own because mom had taken off with a boy or a man that she had found on the internet. And so it's just making sure that that one constant is there for years. Like that mentoring, not just in and out after a couple of years, but for the long haul. And that no matter what you do, we're not leaving you. That became important to that one person. And that has made all the difference in the world for him.
And that's a great story. I think people who believe that one person can't make a difference has not been in this field very long.
That's right.
It's true. Yeah, Kathy.
I've heard of just recurring themes. I like patterns. My brain likes to see patterns, and we're involved in my community in a poverty alleviation program that we just launched, and learning a lot of things about resilience with trying to get our school district more educated about trauma and resilience. And I'm a scout leader, and I've been a youth leader in church and different organizations in school, and a substitute teacher, and I have children and grandchildren, et cetera, my experience with youth. And here, I just wrote down some things that are just over and over I hear in every, I was also a psych English major in college, and relationship, you're all saying relationship. Relationship is not something that you can prescribe, and the data can tell you different things that might work, but relationship, there's a chemistry, and opportunity is what you can create for relationship. You can't force that. But one of, to build resilience, but another thing I've heard you, didn't you say shoulder to shoulder at one point in your presentation? I've heard this, a classmate of mine does a lot of research on men's issues, and men tend to operate shoulder to shoulder. Women tend to operate face to face in terms of grieving and counseling. I think purpose is another word. So when we talk about young men, especially in trouble, but also young women and a whole different thing, I'm going to address men because of my experience with Boy Scouts. There needs to be a purpose. There needs to be a purpose. Getting together and talking is important, you know, counseling and face-to-face talking about our troubles and our issues, but there needs to be purpose in our gathering with boys. In my experience, even if you make something up that we're going to go pull weeds, we're going to dig weeds or things like that, giving men a purpose and boys a purpose in what they're getting together other than just the emotional part. So that's just a little bit of a contribution. We're seeing this in our poverty alleviation right now, trying to put our program on Zoom, our gatherings, trying to translate the purpose of the gathering into a Zoom thing. It changes everything. And we see this in Boy Scouts, trying to do something. Boy Scouts, BSA is doing a national camp they're trying to organize to try to keep the group together online. It's quite difficult unless you have an on-the-ground person that's going to go shoulder to shoulder with the kid and do an activity. So that's something in programs. If there isn't a purpose, all of us need a purpose. And we can all talk all day long, and you all in the field know this more than anybody. But the building a purpose into the counseling sessions and all the driving that happens is something I think that's worth brainstorming. We have some wonderful facilities out in this part of the state. We have the VOTEC in Goodland. We have the college in Colby. We have a wonderful, Dangy Hansen Scout Reservation has a wonderful tech building and program, a facility, a fabulous camping facility with climbing towers and tech bays to teach plumbing and all kinds of things. We have wonderful facilities in this area to maybe combine using, you know, the counseling along with some shoulder to shoulder purpose. And I think that's just my input.
That's really important, Kathy. And then I'm going to turn it back to the coordinators again to arrange for the parking lot. But with everything I've read, I think one of my mantras is it's never just one thing. And we have to take in the complexity of human beings and human interaction. And if I could sum up, you know, everything I've read about these particular topics and learned throughout my life as well, is, you know, build some layers, build some interactions, build different kinds of approaches that you can coordinate and bring together to solve the problem, because it's never simple, it's complex.